Well, thanks everybody for being here. My name is Roberto Bustos. I'm a program manager for Azure SQL. And today we're going to be talking about active Geo Replication in Azure SQL. Now, business continuity is a key requirement to implement any business critical system. Not having a disaster recovery plan in place can put organizations in great financial loss, reputation damage, and customer churn. And many things can happen, from natural disasters like hurricanes, earthquakes, to actually man-made disasters, even, for example, wars. And all these disasters that we cannot plan actually could cause permanent loss of entire data centers or parts of a data center. So imagine if you have your data in this data center and suddenly you have a hurricane and it was a physical damage in the hardware of the data center, then you don't want to lose your data, right? If you have like a very important customer data. Now, the good news is that the cloud has made it easier for customers to deploy replicas quickly in very distant regions. And that's how we have accomplished here for Azure SQL with Geo Replication. Now, before we jump into that, you might be thinking, oh, who is this guy? Well, my name is Roberto Bustos. I am currently, I work for Microsoft. I am a program manager there for Azure SQL. And I basically focus in active Geo Replication. I am the program manager of active Geo Replication. And also I work with the maintenance window for Azure SQL. Part of my experience in Microsoft, I was before a data and AI cloud architect. And I've been working in other companies too, like Oracle. I was there as a senior cloud solutions engineer. In MicroStrategy, that is the BI company, I was there a cloud senior analytics engineer. And in JP Morgan, I was a data analyst. So yeah, I've been around the data and the cloud for some time. And also you can see in the left, I put a pool there and two guys playing squash. I like swimming, I like playing squash. Any day, if you want to play squash, let me know. I will be happy to do it. Okay, so now let's talk about Azure SQL Active Replication. Azure SQL, can you, give me 1 second. Can you still hear me? Excuse me.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I wasn't make sure. Okay, so you can see here just a very simple diagram of active Geo Replication. Basically, active SQL Geo Replication feature is helping customers to keep business continuity, giving them the option to create secondary replicas in the same region or in different region. And actually with GeoDR, you can have multiple replicas, up to 4 replicas. And these replicas can be read-only replicas. So what we have here in the screen is just the basic architecture for Geo Replication. As you can see on your left, we have the primary region where actually all the end user traffic is being pushed. And you have, of course, as the primary, you have read and write and into this database. And we're pushing the read-only into the secondary database, as you can see there. And of course, in the case that you want to fail over to the secondary, all the user traffic will be pushed to the secondary, and now the secondary will become read and write. So it's very simple how it works. So as you can see, one of the advantages of the secondary is that you can have like a read-only secondary that you can use for reporting, and so you don't want to have a lot of transactions in the primary. You can just push all the reporting to the secondary. Now, before we jump also into Geo Replication, I also want to mention how we manage part of high availability in Azure. And hopefully I don't want to confuse you more, but so basically the way it works, in high availability in Azure, let's say you deploy an Azure SQL database. And when you deploy the tier, the business critical or the premium tier, actually it comes with a built-in high availability. And this is the picture you're seeing right now. Is basically when you deploy this, it comes with 3 replicas. And basically, these 3 replicas are for high availability. So every time you deploy one database, underneath is being deployed 4 in total, right? And basically, these clusters are to ensure if something happens to the primary, secondary can take over. And the failover is handled by SQL Server database engine. So the workload is automatically redirected to the new primary node. And in this scenario, you only have like one read only. Now, this is what it comes with premium business critical high availability. And also, we also have a natively in Azure storage redundancy. And we have something called Geo Zone Redundant Storage. So basically, what is happening is all your storage, in the case the storage of your database, is copied across availability zones, and also is replicated to a secondary geographic region. And of course, for the reason is to protect against regional disasters. And this is just the storage that is being copied. And we have designated pair regions, like for example, East US and West US. So basically your storage is being copied to this pair region. If you have, for example, an East US storage, they will be copied to the West US. This is done in a native way in Azure. Now, what I'm trying to mention here, this is all these replicas are in the same region, okay? And this is part of the solution of Azure High Availability. What we're gonna talk about today is that apart from this, apart from having replicas in the same region, you can deploy a replica in a different region in the globe. And actually you can have both, depending on your use case. You can have, of course, premium business critical, have 4 replicas in the same region, and then deploy a geo replica, let's say in a different region, and that replica can have at the same time 3 more replicas. So hopefully I didn't confuse you more, but I just want to mention this. We're not going to be focusing on this. We're going to focus on the geo replication, but I wanted to show you the different options we have in Azure for high availability. So coming back to geo replication, let's say we have here this map, and you have deployed the primary in East US, that is in Virginia, and then you have deployed the secondary in South Central US, that is Texas. So in case of a disaster in Virginia, you can fail over to Texas, right? To the secondary in South Central US. Now, there are also other use cases. It's not only when you have the main one, of course, is when you have a disaster in the area, but also imagine that maybe you have your headquarters in Virginia and in East US, but you have a lot of customers or employees in Texas, in South Central US, and you want them to actually access, they need to access reporting. They need to run these heavy reports. A lot of people need to run these reports, and you don't want to push them actually to the primary because you will cause an overhead in the primary. So basically what you're deciding is, okay, I'm gonna deploy a replica in Texas. So basically it's gonna be a low latency replica. They will have reports with low latency because it is local for them. And actually it won't affect the primary performance. So this is of course another use case where you can use this. And in addition to that, it can be used also for database migration. So basically, you can use active Geo replication to migrate a database from one server to another, and you can do this online with a minimum downtime. So if basically you want to do a migration and you cannot have a lot of downtime, very minimum, you can do Geo replication to do that. And of course, another use case will be if you have to do an application upgrade, you can create an extra secondary. And as a failback copy, and you can use this as a failback copy during the application upgrades. So there are different use cases where you can use a geo replication. Now, we have basically two types of failover. Each failover, of course, has different use cases and different situations where you can use it. We have the planned failover and the unplanned failover. So basically for the planned failover switches the roles of primary and secondary databases after the full synchronization is complete. That means that this is an online operation that does not result in data loss. You don't have any data loss, you plan this failover. So the time of the operation, of course, depends on the transaction log that the primary needs to be synchronized. So the synchronization between the primary and the secondary is asynchronous. So the time depending how big is this transaction log to synchronize with the secondary, right? Now, the plan failover is designed for scenarios like to perform disaster recovery drills in production when the data loss is not acceptable. So basically you want to do a drill to make sure your architecture, your configuration is working properly. And you can just do this drill. Also, maybe you want to relocate the database to a different region. Or it could be also, let's say, you want to return the database to the primary region after an outage has been mitigated, right? We call this failback. Let's say you have an outage in a region, now you want to return the primary and you are doing a failback. So in this case, you're doing a planned failover. Now, of course, there are cases where you will be doing on-plan failover. And basically an on-plan or forced failover, what it's going to do is immediately switches the secondary to the primary role without any synchronization with the primary. So any transactions committed to the primary but not replicated to the secondary will be lost. So, and of course, this operation is designed as a recovery method during outages. This is something that we don't plan. This is one of the reasons we have Geo Replication, things that you cannot control, out of your control, but you have an unplanned failover, right? The primary just goes down and you have to rely now in the secondary. Now, when the primary is back online, it will automatically reconnect and become a new secondary. So if you have unsynchronized transactions before the failover, this will be preserved in the backup file, but this will not be synchronized with the new primary to avoid conflicts. So basically, this transaction, so it could be the case that in the moment that the primary was down, you were not doing a lot of transaction or non-transaction. So maybe the data that have the primary and secondary at that point is the same. But there are, of course, cases if you are you have a database that has heavy number of transactions, that lag, that is some seconds of lag. So those transactions will be lost if in the sudden loss of the primary, then these transactions didn't have the time to go to the secondary. So now the system won't try to push these different transactions into the primary. And that's mainly, as we mentioned, to avoid conflicts, right? So basically you will have to manually merge with the most recent version of the primary database to see exactly what transactions didn't went through and then just merge them. So these are the two types of failover that we have in GeoDR. Now, Geo Replication, the way it works is we replicate using transaction logs. So this is not transactional replication with replicates executing DML commands like insert, update, and delete. We just do this to a transaction logs. We're moving transaction logs from the primary to the secondary. And the way we're doing the replication is asynchronous replication. So asynchronous replication means that transactions are committed on the primary database before they are replicated to the secondary database. Now, there are situations where you actually will want to have a synchronized replication. And there is a way to force it. You can actually force synchronization. We have a procedure called SP wait for database copy sync. And basically, when you use this procedure, let's say you did some password changes and you want to enforce the change immediately, you use this procedure. And what is going to happen is the replication is going to be now synchronous implication, right? Of course, we don't recommend to have these synchronous replication running all the time. And the reason is because this, of course, will impact the performance. And the reason is because it blocks the calling thread until all committed transactions are replicated. So yes, there is a ways to front synchronization. You can use it. You can use this procedure and do it. But of course, the performance will be affected if you leave it there working in a permanent way. Now, there is different ways you can interact with Geo Replication in Azure. We have, of course, the Azure portal, where you can quickly set up your replicas. You can use PowerShell, and you can use Transaction SQL. And of course, you can use REST API. So there are different ways can you interact, can you set up, can you create your scripts to manage geo-replication. Now, for geo-replication, we can have up to 4 secondaries are supported in the same or in different regions. And you may be thinking, well, what I want, why I will want secondary in the same region? Well, it could be that maybe you have this transactional database and suddenly you need or having a lot of customers querying the database, and you start having an overhead of transactions and heavy queries, then you want to offload all these transactions to a secondary that is read-only and don't affect the performance of the primary, right? Now, even though we can have only up to 4 secondaries, there is something called chaining, where actually we can have an endless number of databases. So if you see here in your left, we have here the primary. And the primary in this case has the 4 secondaries. And the primary is pushing the transaction log to each one of these secondaries. Now, of course, having secondaries will require an amount of memory and CPU to be utilized to have this secondary. And having 4, of course, it will require more CPU and memory from the primary. One way to change that, and in the case you need more than 4 secondaries, an endless number, is something called chaining. Basically, if you see in the right, the primary is only doing the replication to database number 1. So instead of having 4 connected, you just have 1. So the overhead is less, because it's basically from the perspective of the primary, it's only 1 secondary, the one connected to the primary. Now this secondary, that is the number 1, at the same time has 2 more secondaries, the secondaries of a secondaries. So basically you can see that database 2 and 3 are secondaries of database 1, that of course is already a secondary. And actually you can build this tree as big as you want. Number 2 can have another secondary, another 2 secondaries, and you can basically create an endless number of databases. So of course this type of architecture will reduce the overhead of the primary database, as from the primary perspective, only 1 secondary is connected. And I mean, the disadvantage will be like, of course, the increase of lag, in the sense like if you compare the primary and the last database of the tree, let's say if you compare database number 2 or 3, or even beyond the last database of the tree, of course, the difference of data, the lag will be higher, right? Because for getting from the primary to the last database on the tree, the database has to be jumping between 2, 3, 4, or more databases. So basically, the increase of lag of data is more in this situation. But there is an option you can do to have an endless number of databases. Now, for Geo Replication, when we talk about Geo Replication, we have also to talk about auto failover groups. So you might be thinking, well, what is this auto failover groups? So auto failover groups is a feature that allows you to manage the replication and failover of a group of databases. Basically, it's an abstraction on top of the existing active Geo Replication. So auto failover group is not like a different service. It's a service that is running on top of Geo Replication, but each one has different use cases and capabilities. And underneath, they are running under the same technology. So I here put this table to compare these two. So if you are thinking about in Geo Replication, you replicate the database into a different region, you will encounter these two options, auto failover groups and Geo Replication. So as you can see here, the first difference is Azure SQL Managed Instance is only supported in auto failover groups. And the reason is, well, Geo Replication is doing replication at the database level. And for managed instance, we're doing actually the failover at the instance level. Basically, the managed instance with all the databases inside, we are replicating this entirely in using auto failover groups. Now, automatic failover is actually only available in auto failover groups. So you have the option in auto failover groups to say, I'm gonna do the failover manually, or you can delegate it to Azure service to say, I'm gonna do it in an automatic way. And you can select this. And when you select the automatic failover, you have to select a grace period of time, meaning that, for example, if a database is down for a certain time, the grace period is, for example, 1 hour. That means that after that hour, you're requiring from us to do the failover. And why you need to do this hour? Well, because think about it. When you have a primary and this primary goes down, I mean, the first thing to try to do is to fix the issue, right? In that grace period, we'll try to find out what is the issue. So we can just bring back the primary and we don't lose any data. In the case there is data that can be lost. Now, if in 1 hour we were not able to bring back the primary, then of course we're gonna fail over to the secondary. So in this case, you can choose different grace periods of time. I mean, this is for 1 hour, but it can be 2, 3, 4 or more hours. In the case you don't want actually in any point to lose any data, then you can choose a grace period like of 24 hours. So you're telling us that you don't want us to fail over basically the primary. You don't want to lose any data, and then you can put like a grace period that is very, very long. Now, you can have multiple databases simultaneously in auto failover groups. In GeoDR we just support one database. So basically, let's say you have one database and you want to create this failover, and you can create multiple GeoDRs, but it's per database. In auto failover groups, you can create an entire group of databases. It can be many databases, and you just treat them as a group, and you can fail over the entire group into a different region. So this is useful. Of course, when you're planning this, when you're planning your architecture, you want to make sure that actually you are okay with failing all this group of databases at the same time, right? And there will be times like if you have an issue with one database but the other ones are running right, then will you be okay doing the failover of the entire group, for example? So, if that's not the case, if you say, no, I want to have them separately, you can create separate failover groups for each database, or of course, use Geo Replication in that sense. Now, other one of the other differences, you have to update the connection string. So in the case of UDR, so the failover must be initiated manually or by your application. And then after the failover, the new primary has a different connection endpoint. So this endpoint you have to change it in your application. In the case of the failover groups, the auto failover groups provide a read and write and read only listener endpoints. So these listeners remain unchanged during a failover. So after the failover is completed, the DNS record is automatically updated to redirect the endpoints to the new region. So that's one of the, of course, advantages of auto failover groups. You don't have to change these points because there are listeners of the entire group. Now, an advantage of GeoDR is you can have replicas in the same region. In auto failover groups, you have to be in a different regions. You cannot create a failover group in the same region. In GeoDR, yes, we explained that, well, there are reasons where if you want a database and have reporting in the same region, you can just create a replica, all your replicas in the same region or in different regions with GeoDR. With GeoDR, you can have multiple replicas. So that means that, as you can see, we mentioned that you can have up to 4 replicas, but with chaining, you have an endless number of replicas. In the case of auto failover groups, you cannot. Basically, when you create a group, you can only have 1 replica. I mean, you always have the option to create more failover groups, right, with different databases. But for one failover group, you can only have 1 replica. And of course, both of these GeoDR and auto failover groups, they both have read scale, meaning that you can always use the secondaries as a read scale option. Now, let's say you are running SQL Server or Azure SQL, and I'm going to focus on the managed service of SQL Server in the cloud, PaaS. So how do other cloud platforms manage this geo replication? I mean, my intention here is not to compare all the features of SQL Server in other clouds. It's just we're just going to be talking about GeoDR. For that, I will require an entire session to discuss that. And I'm not focusing either in all the data, for example, offerings of AWS like Redshift and Aurora. I'm basically, my focus in this slide will be only how, if you have a SQL Server, for example, you want to bring to the cloud in a managed service as a PaaS, what options are in AWS and one Google Cloud. So, you know, in this case, we're going to be talking then for AWS Amazon RDS SQL Server DB. They offer to have this managed service of SQL Server in RDS. So basically, I mean, Amazon RDS is available on several databases instance types like Amazon Aurora, PostgreSQL, MySQL, MariaDB, Oracle Database, SQL Server. And in this case, you can create up to 5 replicas can be created. Each replica needs to have the same size of compute and storage resources. And replicas are only available if you're using SQL Server Enterprise Edition. And for deploying a read replica, they have to be instances that have at least 4 or more vCores. Now, if we focus about the geo replication, creating a read replica in a different AWS region is not supported. So basically, it did not support geo replication. The other interesting point is Amazon RDS for SQL Server does not intervene to mitigate a high replica lag between the primary and the secondary. That means that sometimes if you have you are seeing that between the primary and the secondary, there is a lag of time, and this lag is increasing. You cannot actually, they won't intervene to mitigate this high lag. Something here in Azure, of course, we do mitigate it. If we see like there is a lag between the primary and secondary, we can, of course, take a look of why this is happening. And yeah, I put here the reference if you wanna see more details about this. And then how does Google Cloud manage this? So Google Cloud has something called Cloud SQL for SQL Server. So basically, that's their managed service of SQL service in the cloud. And Cloud SQL instance can be configured as a high availability. It's also called a regional instance, and it's located in a primary and a secondary zone in the same region. So they have these different zones. They are in different zones, but in the same region, right? So Google Cloud also, of course, provides the availability to configure high availability. You can make the primary instance and have a standby secondary instance. And they do synchronous replication. So that means that all writes made to the primary instance are also made to the standby instance. Now, so actually Google Cloud, they do support cross-regional replica, but not for SQL Server Engine. They have these right now. They support SQL cross-regional replica for MySQL and PostgreSQL database engine, but not for SQL Server Engine. So again, we are focusing only in Geo Replication, and you can have more reference here if you wanna see more details on that regards. So as you can see, Azure SQL Geo Replication is a differentiator of Azure SQL. We have we can provide replicas in different regions or same region, multiple of them. As we mentioned, these replicas can be read-only replicas, and all of them can be read-only replicas if you want. And also, of course, with availability groups, you can have multiple databases simultaneously failover. You also have the feature of automatic failover, and you don't need to change the endpoint. And of course, all the technology that we are using for the replication is native SQL Server technology. That means that it is very well integrated because this technology was natively created to do and replicate SQL Server, Azure SQL technology. Okay, so we're gonna do a demo. I'm just gonna show you a very simple demo. If you're thinking, okay, how can we do this? So I'm gonna be sharing now my screen here. Give me 1 second. Okay. Let me know.
Now something strange happened.
Very strange.
You see a very narrow part of your PowerPoint window.
Uh-oh. Can you see my screen now?
PowerPoint ever.
Nope. Yes.
Okay.
The smallest PowerPoint presentation of all times.
Okay. But now you can see the Azure portal, right?
Nope.
Nope. Still only a part of the.
Oh.
Maybe you
okay.
need to stop sharing and
yes.
share again.
Let me stop sharing. Give me 1 second here.
That was impressive.
Yeah, let me see.
Yeah, I want to learn how to do that.
Yeah, me too.
I can teach you after the.
One of the perks of being a PM, you get to do weird things with PowerPoint.
Yeah, very. Now, let me know if you.
Much better.
Perfect.
Perfect. Perfect.
But maybe you could increase the scaling a little bit.
Okay, give me 1 second. Let me, yes, I can, let me screen, make it bigger. Okay.
Just Control plus would have done, I think.
Just let me, this acting, let me share again. Let me know if you see it. Can you see
Perfect.
it now?
Now
Perfect.
even an old man like me can read it. Thanks.
Excellent. So yeah, basically what we have here, and so I created 2 servers here, and one is Contoso server demo. If we click here, we already have a database, Contoso demo database. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click on this database. And actually, as we discussed, Geo Replication is at the database level. So basically, you will have, once you get into the database, you will see this Geo Replication feature. And if you click here, as you can see, actually, this database is already being replicated from East US to West US. So this database is in East US and it's been replicated to West US. But actually, you can create more replicas, and you see here all the regions we have. It doesn't have to be actually in the US. You can, just create replicas in other side of the world, India, Korea, Japan, in different Azure regions. Now, in this case, for example, I will just select South Central US. This is Texas, we're data center in Texas. And then here you can see it's going to be a readable database. If I click here, I will just select this Contoso Server Demo 3, that South Central US. And you can always select different size for the replicas. We don't enforce that you have to have the same SLO. In this case, I'm doing a Gen 5 2V course. You can make it smaller. I would recommend for production environments to have the same size. So you, in the case of a failover, the secondary can handle all the transactions of the primary. So in this case, I'm just gonna basically click OK, and basically that's it. I'm in the process of creating a secondary in South Central US. And as you can see, the status, the first steps is doing something only initializing this. And then the process is known as seeding. So after basically the secondary is created, okay, so the seeding process is data being copied to the primary to the secondary, right? So it has to get all the data from the primary. Once they have the same data, then you start now replicating the latest data every with the transaction logs in a frequently manner. So this process, the seeding process can take it depends how big is your database. If you are replicating like terabytes of data, or it's just a small one. In this case, is small. It should be actually pretty quick, the seeding. And and in the meantime, that happens. That actually, let me see, maybe it's already there here. If I'm refreshing this, yeah, basically the West US region is already in a readable manner. So basically the process has finished. Now, I just wanted to show you, I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna change my screen. Give me 1 second. So let me know, of course, if you cannot see. Sharing this, share. Can you see my screen now with this
Yes.
SQL? Yeah, okay. Yeah, what I want to show, very simple way. So the concept of course, I have the window on the left basically is my database in East US, and my window on the right is my database on West US. So the primary is the one in the left, the East one. So if I come here and select this database, it doesn't exist, haven't created anything. Same here, here. So basically, if I create the database here in the primary, so it's the other way around, right? Yes. Okay, yes, sorry. Let me put this back. Yes, the primary is on the left, the secondary on the right. So if you can see, I tried to create a database, a table on the secondary, and it told me, no, this is a read-only database, as you can see here in the error message, and that's correct. So basically, if I insert any data in this primary, you will see, of course, that is going to be replicated to the secondary. And as you can see, any other thing I add here in the primary, it's going to be reflected in the in the secondary, right? And the interesting point, of course, here is that if I want to insert something in the secondary, it won't let me do it because it will say, you know, this is the secondary. Now, in the case I want to do a failover, so I'm gonna stop sharing and go to the other screen. So let me go here. Okay, so now you're seeing the Azure portal, right? So in the case I want to do a failover, so the only thing I have to do is come here to this server, and I have this database, and basically if I go to Geo Replication, okay, I can see that the primary is East. There are two secondaries. So let's say I take West US. Now I want these to be the primary. I will just do a first force failover. I click yes in this case. Of course, you can do a planned failover too. That's actually recommended if you actually don't want to lose any data. In this case, I'm just doing a force failover. So, you know, what is going to happen now is they're going to switch. The secondary is going to be now the East US, and the primary is going to be the West US. So once that happens, and usually in this case will happen pretty quick because I mean it usually happens, sorry, very quick. Let me refresh this. Spending will take maybe a couple of minutes, but the idea, of course, when this happens is that you will see how, of course, the read only now becomes in the East US, and the write and read will become in the West US. It will take probably a minute or so for that to happen. Now, so what I wanted to show you also with this, there is actually many interesting demos that can be done with failover groups or Geo Replication. I wanted to keep it simple to see, you know, how simple it is to deploy a replica. Imagine if you want to do it by yourself. If you want to do it, let's say you have to have your infrastructure in West US and East US, and then you have to set up, you know, the always on, or, you know, set up by yourself. Of course, it's harder than just you know, simple clicks. As I just wanted to show you how quickly you can do it, and actually how quickly it's also to manage this. And if you're if your business is critical for you, of course, having a Geo Replication also will be critical to make sure you don't lose any data. So let me see if this thing has already refreshed. Takes, okay, well, it will take some minutes, but we can continue. Let me share again my screen with the presentation. Let's see. Let me know when you can see this. Okay, so now you can see my presentation again, right?
Yes.
Perfect. So yeah, so basically the purpose of the demo, it was pretty simple, just to show, okay, how simple you can have like a Geo Replication, and, you know, don't worry about any disaster. Now, let's say that you want to test this out. You tell me, hey, I want to test it out. What can I do? Well, actually, you can do it for free, basically. So the way to do it is you can create an account for free in Azure. And we also have something called, we have like 25 services. We call it always free services. And also we have certain number of services that we give for free for 12 months. So in this case, for example, you can deploy a SQL database with 250 gigabytes in storage, and you can deploy this database actually for 12 months for free. So account for free, database for free. And then if you want to create a replica, we also have, when you sign in to create a new account, Azure gives you $200 credits, and you can use these $200 in 30 days. So basically, I just put an example here. If you use this $200 credit, you can actually deploy a replica with 100 DTUs database and 500 gigabytes in storage for a month. So basically, you can totally test the entire Geo Replication for a month with a database of this size, and you wouldn't have to pay anything. And the good thing about Azure is also, in terms of Azure SQL, is very flexible. If you can even deploy a smaller database, and this is small database is like $5 per month or something like that. I mean, we're giving you, of course, you know, a small part of CPU and memory, but this is good if you want to test it out to see how it feels. And then, of course, you can bring databases up to 100 terabytes of data, you know, with hyperscale, and really scale this as you need. So yeah, I just wanted to show you here, okay, if you want to try this out, what can you do? How can you try this out? And I put you an example, how can you do it for free? And of course, I give you these links if how to get your account for free. It's pretty straightforward process. And also, I'm giving you this active Geo Replication link where we have, of course, everything I have discussed this. Many of the things are there documented. You also can find videos, demos, samples, quick starts, tutorials, you know, just to make you understand better the concept, and actually to decide, you know, if you're going to deploy Geo Replication or failover groups. So yeah, I think this is it from my side. You can always contact me with LinkedIn. You can add me, or you can just send me an email at Robustos@Microsoft if you have any question. If you need help with an architecture or design, or how can we help you to build your high availability architecture, we are happy to help. So just please reach out to me, or you can add me in LinkedIn, and I will be happy to help you. So I don't know if there are any questions at this point.
Yeah!